Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Welcome to my Christmas series. Okay, we're going to be taking these 3 absolutely dorky looking Dollar Tree bells and bringing them up to speed with current on-trend home decor. So go ahead and grab 3 of them and remove all of the paraphernalia and decoration on the tops. Next, you're going to use a glass, any glass that is the right height that you want these bells to be. So this is actually a Dollar Tree glass. You might recognize it, but you just put a little hot glue at the bottom. And this is just a temporary hold. It's just to get your bell nice and straight. Make sure your bell is nice and straight as you can make it. And then you're going to take a pen just like this and lean it on the glass and go around and make a line on your bell. Next, you're going to remove your bell and just pick the hot glue off. Everything comes off nice and easy for you. And that's what it should look like when you're all done. Now here comes the really important step. You do need to put tape above the line, right above it, like I am. Follow the line nice and straight for the next step. And what this does is it gives a brace to your bell basically. So when you go to cut this and reshape it, it's not going to crack. Notice I pushed the tape down too. Make sure you push it down really hard all around so it's got a firm grip on that bell. Now here we are in real time, and you can see how slow I'm going, and I'm cutting in at angles. So you want to cut in almost like you're making triangles. If you try to cut all the way around, there's too much resistance with the plastic and it will crack, or it might crack. The tape pretty much it prevents that, but you never know. I don't know what kind of scissors you have. Mine are really sharp, but you definitely want to go slow. Now I sped this up again, but I am going super slow, even sped up 3 times. So this is 3 times as fast, and I'm still going kind of slow. So you can imagine in real life, it's not sped up how slow I was going, because you have to nibble away slowly in little tiny chunks. And it's all in an effort to prevent cracking, but it's worth it. Oh my gosh, I was so excited to share this DIY with you guys. These bells are so expensive right now. They're ridiculous. They're coming in at 60 something at Target. And everywhere I go to look for these bells, they're outrageous. So this is what I do. I'm going to show you how to have it for pennies on the dollar. So here I am still trimming away, and once you get to that line, there's going to be like an ink line left, but it actually looks really good. So use your permanent marker in black, because that black line is going to look awesome when the DIY is all done. Now you're going to remove your tape, and that's what it should look like. Look at that magic. We now have a totally current shaped, awesome looking bell to work with. So now you're taking a baby wipe. I'm using Huggies natural, the ones, it's mostly just water, and a little bit of I'm using chalk paint and plaster, but you could use black paint, but I just use chalk paint, and you're tapping it on. You're basically tapping it on, that's it. You're just tapping it all over this bell. You're going to go on the outside and up on the inside, and it creates an absolutely amazing effect. It makes it look like antique gold instead of that cheap, nasty little fake foil metallic gold that they got going on there. This makes it look like real metal and makes it look old and vintage and just good. So for the tops, I decided to use sisal rope. You can choose whatever you want. It's just this is what I had on hand, and this is what I felt would look really good and complimentary based on what I had on hand. I probably would have thought of something else, but you work with what you got. But I love the way it turned out. So there's little holes on the side of the bell, and you're just going to push whatever you use down and pull it through on the other side until you get the circle to the size that you want. I wanted it to be about that size. And you notice I burned the sisal rope beforehand. I actually singed it on purpose so that it would look older, but it's still not dark enough, so I end up doing more. So I did all 3 bells, and now I'm using the wooden stick from those sponge brushes. Save those, by the way. Those are great for DIYs, and I cut them in 3 different pieces. They don't have to be totally even. You just have to cut them in 3 different pieces. Those are going to be our chimes. And I'm using a nail file to file them down. Next, I'm taking antique wax. Any antique wax will work, and you're just staining these nice and dark. You're not going light on this one. You're going nice and dark. Next, you're going to take that antique wax and you're going to go ahead and stain. If you use sisal rope or twine, you're going to stain that super dark as well. You can use black paint or brown paint for this too. I mean, it would work as a stain. Just use the baby wipe because that will help your paint work more like a stain instead of paint. But the aim here for me anyway is just to get that sisal rope looking nice and vintage to match the bells, and of course getting it darker. It looks so beautiful when it's done. This is my favorite DIY. Well, actually, I love all of them, but there's always a favorite that you go, oh, wow, that came out way better than what I thought. Anyway, I'm putting the nautical rope. That's what I'm using for the chime, the little bell or whatever it is. I am using that, and I glued it up at the top, what you saw right there. And because these sticks are different lengths, I went ahead and glued it in first and then cut it to the length that I needed and kept testing it until it got to the right height. And then I just put a little bit of hot glue on the tip of the nautical rope. You can see it right there. I'm holding it and I'm gluing my little chime down, and that's it. Look how cute that is. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is going on my front door this year. I'm going to leave these up all year, actually. I think they're beautiful just to hang on your wall. So next you're going to use the nautical rope, or I use the nautical rope. You can, if you'd like to use something else, you can. This is how I made mine. But I'm using the nautical rope, and if you saw me pick it up, test it to make sure it kind of rings back and forth and it's got enough movement, but it's not too big. Check your little loop. And I use some hot glue to pinch that together. And now I'm using some of the Walmart twine, which is a little thicker than the Dollar Tree twine. It comes in a spool for about $5. They may have raised the price since I last bought it, but last I bought it, I think it was $5 or $6, but it lasts forever. And then I'm just going to wrap that around, and you add hot glue as you need it, wherever you feel like you need it to secure it. I just did it at the beginning and at the end, and if I felt like it needed it in the middle, I did a little bit in the middle. I think I did it right there in the middle too. And then I put it at the end right there, and I'm going to finish off the tip with hot glue as well and pinch it down, and then you get this really, really cute little twirled hoop there that holds your bells. So I adjusted all the different nautical rope to the right height. You know, I held it up. I didn't show you all of that because it's kind of self-explanatory. You want to make sure your nautical rope is cut in the right lengths so that the bells cascade and fall down gradually the way that you like them. And that's what I did. And so now I am gluing the little loop at the top on top of those 3 nautical rope strands that are attached each to a bell. And I'm going to take the same twine from Walmart and wrap it around at the top. The same thing I did on each one of the bells, I'm doing at the top, and that's going to be the loop that holds them at the top. And once you're done with them, you can add pine and berries on the top. That's what I did, just to hang them for Christmas, but for all year I'll leave them plain. But you're going to hold them up, and you're going to be absolutely thrilled because these look absolutely awesome. I think they do. I'd love to know what you guys think, but you're going to get these super expensive on-trend bells for cheap, 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 cheap. I'm serious, the Dollar Tree bells are awful. For this next project, you're going to need 4 of the 8x10 frames from Dollar Tree and 4 of the tiles. So you just take the glass out of those frames, keep the cardboard backing, and I'm giving it 1 coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. I usually make my own chalk paint, but when I first moved here, I didn't have any craft supplies, so I just went and bought a bunch of chalk paint, so we're using it up. And now you take the cardboard backing there and you trace out on the tile. I took my time doing this really slowly to make sure that the center little design was totally centered in the middle of my frame. And I highly recommend that you use clamps, whatever you have to do when you're trimming these to fit, because they are slippery, they move around. But once you have your template, I'm showing you how it doesn't move. It's like a little puzzle piece. It sits on top of the other tiles because the groove fits into the indentation on the underside. Totally helpful, but I still clamped it because these little guys want to slip. I still clamped it when I was cutting, but I was able to get 3 other perfect templates. So we're cutting 4 all together. Now I'm taking the same color, plaster, same paint, chalk paint from Waverly, and I'm going to go ahead and paint all 4 of these tiles and set them aside to dry. Once they're dry, I'm taking the color Nutmeg from Apple Barrel Paint because I wanted a warm cinnamon type color. I thought that was really pretty for Christmas, and I'm just gently dry brushing over the top. Then wherever it's too dark, I go back with a little bit of plaster. I kind of like that veiling effect that has if you go over it again with the lighter color, and I do that to all 4. Now I'm hot gluing it on top of the little cardboard pieces that came in the back of the frames, and I'm putting all of them back into their frames. This definitely was a Hobby Lobby inspiration because in the summer there was a window with tiles in it that looked just like this, except as I recall the frame was darker. I actually filmed it and I spent the last half hour looking for that little video footage so I could show you, and I deleted it because obviously it got too late to show you the summer items because they're gone now. But this would be a dupe. Other than the white frame, it was frame tiles. That's what it was, and it was awesome. I think it came out in spring, so I'm doing a light version of it. So you're just taking hot glue, gluing the edges together. I'm choosing to use poster board to reinforce this. This is actually feather light. It's going to have the illusion of looking heavy, which is awesome, but it's going to be feather light. And I just measured to cut out a strip of poster board there that I can glue on the seams. Every seam will be reinforced with poster board. So you might wonder, why isn't she doing the craft sticks? Because you'll see people do craft sticks. It's because craft sticks, paint sticks, all of it adds weight. And that's the last thing you want to do when you don't have a structurally sound. I mean, you have a lot of seams here that could potentially come apart. Now, if you use a good quality hot glue, I'm using Gorilla Glue or Surebonder, that increases the odds it's not going to come apart. Or if you reinforce it like Holly is right now, it won't come apart. Also, you need to use high heat on your glue gun when you do these kind of crafts where there's potential for things to come apart. It just holds better because it melts all the compounds down in the hot glue more thoroughly, so it can bond together better. I read it, not sure about the chemistry behind it, but just trust me, you need high heat. So as you can see, I made a cross on every single one of the vulnerable seams with the poster board, plenty of hot glue, and now we're going to add even more poster board on the back of this. Makes it look nicer, and we're going to keep those 2 hooks open on the back side because that's how we're going to hang it. Make sure you do that. But it makes it so that it looks nicer, and also it makes it so it will never ever come apart because I'm gluing every single section. I'm gluing the back of the cardboard, which is anchored in by those metal pieces. I'm gluing the seams, which is, reinforced with additional poster board, and I'm literally not adding any weight at all. Now, because these seams are so small, I'm able to go over it with chalk paint and fill them in. If you have bigger seams, you might want to use spackling, but chalk paint did just fine. And this is a wreath I got super cheap for like $3 from Temu. I thought it was so cute. And here's some ticking stripe material I bought on Amazon. I will leave the link down below in the description box if you would like some. It is tough to find around Christmas time, I'll tell you. But for Christmas crafts, there is no substitute. So I'm cutting it in strips for ribbon today. And I'm also using this Dollar Tree fabric here today, which is almost like a thin muslin. I bought this originally thinking it would be awesome to print on because it's totally thin enough to go through a printer. It is short, so you can see I have to cut 2 strips here. And the way I get my fabric to fray on the edges is just take a really sharp scissor and the blade, rub it along the edges like you saw me do there, and it works if you don't want to put it through your washing machine tons of times. And because it's short, I'm having to glue the 2 ends together, but don't worry, you're not going to see it with the way we tie our bow. I just tie it with some of the Dollar Tree twine, and I'm going to tie the red ticking stripe fabric the exact same way. Next, we're going to give a nice edge to the bottom of these bows. I put the red ticking stripe bow on top of the cream colored bow, and I tied them together, and then I'm going to tie them on the wreath from Temu that I got where I'd like it. I'm just putting it kind of anywhere where I thought the flowers looked nice. And then I'm tying it with twine so I can change that out seasonally depending on what season it is. And I'm using some of the red ticking stripe ribbon that I also got from Amazon to hold this up. To reinforce it, I'm doing duct tape on one of the strips and then duct tape on the other strip so it's separate. Now I'm using some of the Dollar Tree black wire and I'm tying it through those little hangers that I told you to leave open. And this is so I can adjust the height and level it this way. So when you hang it, if it's off balance, you just twist that side of your little looped wire a bit more and you'll shorten it that way. And you just keep doing it until you get it right on your wall. And this also gives you, easy access. It's much easier to hang it on nails in a wall or command strips or whatever you're using if you have wire on the back. And lastly, we're going to add these absolutely beautiful, juicy looking berries that I also got from Amazon. They're down below in the description box to make this festive and ready for Christmas. I love this one. Let me know what you think. For this next project, I'm using a egg carton and I'm just cutting out those little cups there the best I can. And see the little cone thing at the top there? I'm going to utilize the top of that as part of this DIY later too. I will show you. But that's all you're doing is just cutting those out. They're not going to be even, so don't stress. And when you're all done cutting them out, cut the little longer ends off the best you can and then cut up the sides like I did right there so you could make that cross shape. And you're going to be just trimming them into perfect little squares or rectangles, but like that, just the best you can. And that's what it looks like when you're all done. Now, if you have about 6 egg cartons, you would need about 6. You could make a Christmas tree using just those all the way down, which would be gorgeous. If you alternate them each time you glue them down, that would be so pretty and totally free. But I only had 1 carton, so we're going to work with what we have. And this part right here is the top of the part I was talking about. That's going to be the top of my tree. I used that right there. I just used one of those. So don't throw those away. You'll need that later on. I'm using English Ivy Green from Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and paint each one of these. Now, it doesn't have to be full coverage, so don't stress if a little bit of the egg carton shows through, all the better. All my crafts tend to be on the rustic side. I think that's what makes them beautiful, so that's fine. It just go with it. It works perfectly. So to the best of my ability, I laid these down in order. So the bigger ones are at the bottom, then the medium ones, and then the smaller ones. And that just happened on its own organically. I didn't try to do that, but you actually are supposed to try to do that so that you have more of a cascading effect, because obviously Christmas trees kind of go up like a triangle, so you don't want them to all be exactly the same size. So the ones on the top I definitely made smaller on purpose. And now you take a pencil and you're going to be curling those upwards a little bit with your pencil. You don't have to use a pencil. You could use a paintbrush, anything round, but you're just curling the ends a little bit upwards. I have these little small wood rounds. Honestly, I can't remember if I got those at the Dollar Tree or on Temu, but I never buy from Temu unless it beats the Dollar Tree or is the same price. But they're just little wood rounds, and that's what I decided to put in between each one of these to raise this up, since I don't have 6 cartons, and it worked out really, really nice. So you just want to make sure you alternate each time you go up. See how I am putting one cross down, and then when there's an opening on the side, you'll see right here, I'm going to go ahead and put right there. See how there's that opening? Because the last one I put down is kind of facing upwards. The second one I put down now is facing sideways. So you just want to go back and forth every other that way. It looks better that way. And you're putting one of those little wood rounds in between. If you don't have a wood round, you could always cut a cork from a wine bottle. You could use a lid from a water bottle and paint it to look like wood. Use your imagination here, but you can put anything in between that. So although I saved that point for the top of my tree, I am now having the situation where that little square there in the center, it needs more of a subtle graduated, I guess cone going up before I can top my tree. So I'm just using more of the egg carton and cutting out a cone to fit that square on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it down there and paint it green. And then that will fit also the top of that little point I just showed you. I held the point up because that's going to fit just perfectly right on top of the cone. And for the bottom of this tree, I decided to go with 2 more of the wood rounds, but you could also go outside and cut a branch and use that as well. Next, I decided to flock my little tree, so I'm just taking a chip brush and I'm kind of stippling, I guess, and patting it on there to create the look of frost and snow. I'm staying in line with the primitive theme also with this tree, and so I decide the best topper will just be a very simple, very humble twine bow. I just take a little bit of flame there to singe off the hairs on my bow and glue it on the top, and we're all done. And considering what this is made out of, I mean, you can take a stick from outside and get those wood rounds yourself. This is definitely a free DIY, but it looks so high-end. It's heavy, it has weight to it. It is so unique looking and it's so cute. I love this one. For this next project, I'm using 2 of these Dollar Tree little houses. They're like shadow boxes on one side with a chalkboard, and I'm just using a hairdryer to remove the stickers. I also got 2 of these wooden plaques from the Dollar Tree, and I'm giving them a sand because they're definitely rough on the sides, and we're going to be using those as a base, and I'm going to give them a quick coat of white paint. Next, I'm going to be using this really pretty Christmas craft paper that I got from Temu. It was super cheap. I picked it up as a last minute thing. I think they pushed it out at like $1.59 or something, and it was so much prettier than I thought. And there are tons of different photos in there. That's going to last me a few years. So I was really pleased with that. And this is some craft paper, again, from Temu. It's 6x6, but I decided to do combinations just for a little bit more contrast and a little bit more fun for the eye to look at, but they're complementary to each other. And then I chose for my imagery a vintage Santa and a vintage Christmas tree. And we're just cutting everything out and getting it nice and even, and we're going to go to the good old glue stick here to glue these down and let it dry. So it was a little wet with the glue stick, just a tiny bit. You do have to let it dry a little bit before you sand it. Maybe, I don't know, like 3 or 4 minutes. It dries pretty quick. But then I'm just taking a nail file and sanding the edge. Now I did want to Mod Podge this on. I'm making one for my daughter and one for me. And here's the interesting thing. The first time I put the Mod Podge on the Christmas tree, I went too heavy-handed and it started to bubble, and I actually had to use my finger and rub it down while I was blow drying to get that under control, and once it dried, it went back to normal. But I got smart with the Santa there, and I used just a little bit of Mod Podge, moved really quick, and blew dry it right away. In fact, you can see the lights flickering because my lights flicker now when I blow dry, but I do not, I just didn't want to stop, because if I stopped, I would definitely get more bubbling. So also here you can see I always like to take my little plaques and twirl them around and around to make sure I'm getting them right in the middle, and then I glue them down in a way where I'm kind of just tipping it upwards and putting the glue underneath to make sure that it's in the middle still when I finally go to hot glue it down. And then I'm just using this decorative moss here. It's kind of a mix of green and brown. It's like Spanish moss and moss mixed together, but it's really nice. And then I'm using more of this lycopodium. I believe they bring this out during the coastal time, thinking this is good for coastal decor, but I actually think it's better for Christmas. But so hopefully they'll bring it out for Christmas. If not, look for it again around the summertime, because that's when I found it. Same time they brought out the coastal decor. I'm just sticking little leftover pieces of that here and there because it does look like pine, and it just adds kind of a wild Christmassy look. I love the look of that stuff. It's really pretty. I doubt I'll find it again, so I'm doubting you guys will too, but I'm definitely looking for it again next year. These are some really awesome bells I found on Temu that are already aged. They're ready to go, and it was like a lightning deal. I think I got like 15 of them for $3. It was just such a good deal for the amount you get, and that they were already done. And of course, they're not giving off the cinnamon. You can use a cinnamon trick though. You can always paint your little jingle bells kind of lightly brown, just sponge it on there and then sprinkle on cinnamon while it's still wet, and it will give you the same effect. And here's another find from Temu that I thought was so cute. Those were like 78 cents. They're little wooden beads, but they're painted like Christmas candy. Look at that, isn't that cute? And I took that gingham print ribbon there. That was from the Dollar Tree. I tied it with some of the twine from Dollar Tree, and then I tied it onto the bells. I couldn't get the ribbon through the bells, so I just used twine, and that turned out really cute. Now I'm just gluing on some berries. I got these off of Amazon. The link is down below in my description box. And although I am using crafting paper from Temu, I do have links to vintage Santa and vintage imagery, as well as different patterns just from all the years of crafting. So the free printables will be down below in my description box. There will be links down there you can click if you want to recreate this craft or something very similar. And you just click the word more underneath the video and a drop down menu will appear, and that's where you'll find all the links. But I think this came up so pretty. If you had fun today and enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It really does help my channel get seen here on YouTube and helps my channel grow. And as always, until the next one, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.